Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel is giving away a Maserati every Thursday in March. Club Serrano members play all month long to earn entries for your chance to win a luxurious Italian sports car. Join for free today and don't miss your chance to drive off in a new Maserati. It's all happening at Yamava Resort and Casino, the only AAA 5-diamond rated casino hotel in the country. Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly. It's time to win. Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel is giving away a Richard Mille watch plus $15,000 cash. Secure a finalist spot with 3 ways to play in March and April for your chance to win. It all builds up to the grand finale on April 9th when one lucky Club Serrano member takes home the coveted luxury Swiss timepiece. Join for free today for your chance to win at Yamava Resort and Casino, the only AAA 5-diamond rated casino hotel in the country. Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly.
Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, a very special guest, returning guest. It's Austin Picard. We've done a number of shows. I've been on shows with him, or he was supposed to be there. Wasn't feeling well on Jose. No way, Jose with Callison. But we've done a number of shows. One of my most listened shows was a show not a lot of people in the Western world know about, but that is about the Solar Temple, which is really a bunch of kind of French-speaking stuff. But that's one of our listened to shows. And I think I was supposed to talk to him about the Knights of Malta. He didn't make it. And I think we did another show. I can't remember now offhand, but we have one scheduled to cover Catchers in the Rye or Catcher in the Rye. We're talking the pre-show, which ties into this Mockingbird. This will be Mockingbird Part 4 of just the infiltration of our cognitive reality by these secret societies. It's pervasive. I think it's fair to say the American people are close to slaves, if not full slaves, at least at this point, where they take your tax dollars and grind you down with taxes, at least in 2025, from all angles, and then flat out steal it. It's a kleptocracy. Yeah. And then they blame you for being a racist or whatever. So they hit you with the propaganda too, which I think has happened in all slave systems.
Absolutely.
So I think the American people have become slaves in their own country. And it says a lot about the people. It's like, live free or die. It's like live freak or die. And all these things about the tough guy stuff is just a bunch of baloney. Really, the American male is not really that tough. He's gelded and
100%.
Weak. And that's just a sad truth that we all have to deal with. But we can talk about how it happened, because I don't think the frog was boiled overnight. It took us, it's a slow grind, decades and decades. Pure propaganda going into the school system. I talked to John Kleincheck yesterday, and that's just another example of how they've just, you're born into a matrix. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And the corruption is off the charts. Like we spent 15 minutes talking the pre-show about so much stuff going on. Just this Epstein, I don't know what you call it, the fake rollout. The goof
false
rollout.
transparency.
And it's interesting too, Austin, is that it wasn't that, but how they primed the public. There's going to be this great revelation, and everybody's excited, and then all the other influencers are on board in concert, like the mighty Wurlitzer, a different Mockingbird event. Like everybody's excited, okay, and then they roll them out. They're at the White House, all these alternate media people. And they walk out with their binder and they're happy. And there's pictures. They got the pictures for the chumps out there in the national. And then people read through it and they're like, "What the funk? What is this? This is all redacted." And I've studied Epstein 5 years ago. And it all happened, or 6 years ago.
National security reasons, there, William.
Right. That's the old excuse, right? It comes from both sides. Like, oh, national security. And they had every excuse in the book. We don't want to reveal the abused people, blah, blah, blah. Well, some of that stuff, they redacted stuff on the phone book that has already been disclosed. Like, you can find an unredacted black book. Oh, and it's embarrassing for the entire administration and all these other bums and all these lies, and all these influencers are just a bunch of chump. They're lying. Like this guy put Posobiec and Candace Owens and Cernovich. Like, hey, this is the great. I think Posobiec is an intel agent, or was.
Oh yeah.
And,
it seems very much like it. Emily Austin, I believe was all these influencers are effectively compromised by Israeli interests, right? So they're known to be paid speakers for the ADL. You look into
Libs of
how
TikTok, all those guys all have shady foreign people. It's all the blackmail. So we send $25 billion to Israel and then they blackmailed our media. Like, well, you're
it's
not free. You're a chump. The American
exactly,
man is a chump. You've been chump for
absolutely.
decades in front of your face. I mean,
Hmm.
it's almost like humiliating, like, hey, smell the glove type stuff. Like, it's
Truly,
so
and
bad.
especially you look at uh one of the influencers was Emily
I have a
Austin,
picture.
right? Who I just mentioned, who had done some speaking for the ADL and has clearly been compromised, right? And apparently was even a TV reporter and Miss Universe judge, repped by the Epstein affiliate Casey Wasserman's company, who is the LA 2028 chairperson, who's pictured alongside Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. So he's very obviously compromised. And
There's Emily Austin. So that's
yep.
13 there. Somebody went through and did a Chaya Raichik, lives of TikTok, full on fake influencer. I've seen her do fake stuff with other people.
Yep.
It's obviously Cernovich, Rogan O'Handley. Some of these people I don't know.
I know. Yeah, I was unaware of a few of these personalities beforehand, but it's mostly because I tend to focus on more credible resources when it kind of boils down to it. I think is
Right. I
yeah.
totally agree with you. This one girl, interestingly, Isabel Brown, I didn't know who she was. She works with Charlie Kirk of Turning Point. Somebody online just found her with like a cross of Jerusalem on her arm. She got a
Oh, I saw
tattoo.
that.
So, like,
Oh my,
the Knights of Malta, the kind of old Crusader thing is rearing its head. It's incredible. Like, the
that is.
past is present. But
I believe Jessica Reed Krause was invited to the White House as well for the Epstein binder. And if you
House and
remember,
Habit, I think that's what her thing is.
yeah, she wore like a Free Ghislaine t-shirt, like legitimately. And yeah. And but
It's a
by the way, I
joke.
think Laura Loomer exposed that. But do you remember Isaac Cappy?
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm not sure your thoughts on him. I've not done a deep enough dive to really assess the credibility of Isaac Cappy, but I know that it's a very strange story from the outside looking in. Just loosely affiliated with the details, it seems like something is very strange in regard to how he died and what he was attempting to expose in certain ways. But some of the claims didn't seem to come with correct with like legitimate corroborating evidence, but it very much seemed like it was at least in the realm of reality in regard to how these this as they say, the deep state, right, how it functions. And I think that it's kind of crazy because I just went on with Jose on Tinfoil to talk with Sam about Gladio, and we kind of presented it as this private intelligence, like this international private intelligence network that was essentially implemented and formed post World War II through the Nazi rat lines, but also through these stay behind networks that were very much rooted in these well represented nations that are tied directly into NATO and the United Nations. And clearly it's very interesting because you find that there are these overlapping techniques utilized within the context of it, as far as like um, you know let's say using private front corporations like Wackenhut is a great example, right? And I was unaware for the longest time that obviously through chaos the CIA was founding and all these various proprietary firms and organizations at the time for plausible deniability purposes, but they were also utilizing these corporate front organizations. And within the context of Gladio, it was directly involved with implementing the Gladio op in various countries domestically, were these corporate front organizations like Wackenhut and Permindex. And I looked up Wackenhut, and man, I was unaware that Wackenhut was actually during the New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison's investigation of the JFK assassination. It was Wackenhut that performed detective work for Clay Shaw's defense team and was illegally eavesdropping on Garrison's office. Now, Wackenhut also happened to provide. This is so crazy because it had a
They tie into Danny Casolaro and the
Danny Castellero's octopus, the
yeah,
Iran-Contra
yeah.
affair, but also they were providing these paramilitary black site training grounds in Belgian Gladio for the Marc Dutroux affair as well. So you have it directly tied into the Front de Legiones and the Westland New Post, and it's absolutely crazy as far as those neo-Nazi paramilitary organizations that were utilized at the time in French and Belgian Gladio and Italian Gladio as well. Oh my God! By the way, I had no understanding that Mother Teresa was potentially a child trafficker. I had no realization that her child care organizations were, yes, apparently she's affiliated, potentially tying back to P2 and Italian Gladio, and was, Robert Maxwell was laundering millions of dollars through her organizations. And it's very interesting. She was providing the Vatican Bank like $50 to $100 million per year. Yeah,
it's a huge amount of money.
Astonishing, man. But the last point I wanted to make, though, is this Wackenhut connection. It's really amazing because you can tie this all the way up to modern day, which this was something I was unaware of until recently when I was actually covering the Omar Mateen case and the Pulse nightclub shooting. So what I realized when I was doing the Danny Casolaro episode on the Promise Software scandal, which ties directly into Epstein, by the way, obviously we know this, as far as even Ghislaine's sister was involved.
Christine, right?
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy, but her husband as well. But anyway, so during this time,
was it Melina with her husband? Christine's husband?
I can't remember his name now, honestly.
Because if it's Melina, I'm pretty sure it's Melina because that's the son of the guy who worked with Jack Parsons in the Suicide Squad.
Oh my God.
I just mentioned that in the Courtney
that
Turner show. Yeah,
that is
Game
amazing.
B. Oh yeah, it's a small world, dude.
Right.
Like literally, the son of Melina, which is a Czech last name, married Ghislaine.
Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel is giving away a Maserati every Thursday in March. Club Serrano members play all month long to earn entries for your chance to win a luxurious Italian sports car. Join for free today and don't miss your chance to drive off in a new Maserati. It's all happening at Yamava Resort and Casino, the only AAA 5-diamond rated casino hotel in the country. Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly. Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel is giving away a Maserati every Thursday in March. Club Serrano members play all month long to earn entries for your chance to win a luxurious Italian sports car. Join for free today and don't miss your chance to drive off in a new Maserati. It's all happening at Yamava Resort and Casino, the only AAA 5-diamond rated casino hotel in the country. Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly.
Ghislaine's sister, Christine. And then they're affiliated with the Santa Fe Institute, and we know Epstein had a little off place in Santa Fe, and Dan actually donated to it, and that's a tie to this Game B, which the Weinstein brothers are in. So they're Epstein. They're Epstein.
Oh yeah,
in the orbit is very fair. I think it's very fair.
And Weinstein was, if I remember correctly,
Rogan would never ask him that. That's the whole thing, man. Even these alternate media guys, they don't ask any real investigative questions.
Not at all. But don't worry, Dan Bongino, he's reminding everyone, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, they got this under control.
Dude, it's like the Keystone Cops, bro. It's crazy. Like we're past a month and just a bunch of cheap talk, man. Wow.
Yeah. No kidding.
And there's so much criminality and so much stealing. There's hundreds of billions of dollars missing in California alone. There's probably $500 billion.
What do you think is going to happen to Karen Bass?
They should all be arrested. I mean, they should be for incompetence, but like, where's the money? Like, there's 125 billion or something crazy in the high-speed rail here.
Newsom has a new podcast.
Yeah, he's doing a podcast. There's money missing. I think I'll do a podcast. That'll solve it.
Oh man,
they burned down there's 250 billion. I mean, this is like not even the human mind cannot comprehend the loss. Like people would be like, man, I lost $5,000 in like my car crash and I lost my car. 5,000, that hurts. But the amount of money lost, they can't comprehend it. So the fires here, the incompetence that caused the fires, they could have done a lot of stuff to prevent the enormity. It was $250 billion in loss distributed out to people who will never get paid back because the insurance like left these, the areas because the state wasn't doing the job to protect the environment or doing this like the, stuff that any person could go, wow, there's a lot of brush up on the hill. Maybe somebody should cut that down. Like it looks like it could be like a tinderbox. That never happened. So they lost $250 billion. The houses aren't going to get built back for 5 to 7 years. And nobody's saying they're sorry.
No, but yet it's aligning perfectly with Klaus Schwab's vision for Los Angeles 2028, right? And that's another thing with Gaza 2035. Also, was it Myrtle Beach? What is the new fires that are happening recently? Where was it at?
I don't know.
Man, I just somebody sent it to me. They have the plans ready to go. They have the right for the 15-minute smart city infrastructure being placed. This is the Build Back Better. The Build Back Better is burn it to the ground, scorched earth policy, and then we provide the new infrastructure, whether you like it or not.
That's total crap hole. It's like this is the theme of enslavement.
Yeah.
The American people are weak. Stop fooling yourself that you're a tough guy. You've been conned and played for decades. You've lost all your tax money. You can't get a loan for a new house. You're in debt. You can't afford a $500 payment. You're a slave. And they're enslaving. Look what they did to Lahaina. The build back in Lahaina is a joke. They didn't tell. There's no memorial for the 3,000 kids who got incinerated. Their names are lost. They don't give a crap about you.
No.
They stole the election in 2020. And I don't think Trump, the golden age or the golden boy or whatever, this is still ongoing, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's just another con.
Yeah, and it's very interesting.
And it's facilitated through this Mockingbird media.
Oh,
everything's
absolutely.
Normalizing total evil is really but my next show is going to be called The Normalization of Total Evil because that's really
wow, that's a great title. Yeah, I find it very interesting though that you mentioned the Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, right? I'm curious to know your thoughts of Ian Carroll going on Rogan because I saw him. I'm very skeptical of this guy. I'm not trying to have any sort of personal attack in any way. I don't know him. I'm willing to talk to almost anyone as long as I can't 100% prove. Honestly, my whole point being is that I've been extremely skeptical from day one as far as his meteoric rise in this alternative media landscape. I don't really quite enjoy the TikTok version of the presentation style of things either. So that's just my personal taste. But I will say I appreciate at least, certain people may be being introduced to these ideas that wouldn't have otherwise been. But the issue is with limited hangouts, isn't that the deliberate, deception behind this technique? And then my ultimate, realizing when first of all, he shills Eric Prince's Blackwater phone. All right. That's very strange.
Night of Malta.
Right?
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. And then you have this inability to acknowledge Peter Thiel and the effect that he very much, if you cannot see the ultimate impact that the Peter Thiel acolytes are having standing tall behind Donald Trump's administration right now, you're not paying attention in my mind, and you're avoiding the ultimate inevitable pivot to the technocratic totalitarian state. I mean, honestly, that's what I'm worried about. And you see the dystopian biometric health concerns, these new measures being implemented on the heels of all of this. It's like deregulation, but in the wrong way, right? It's like it's ultimately to benefit the pharmaceutical companies. So it's it's very interesting to witness. But you see the deputy director of HHS, Jim O'Neill, he's a Peter Thiel acolyte. He's a Peter Thiel associate. Yeah, and he's attempting to essentially bring in this new deregulatory paradigm that would allow the pharmaceutical companies to just pass through these vaccines that are essentially untested. And it's like you talk about dystopian biometrics. I mean, we're heading there on the fast track, and it seems. And I'm worried that potentially someone like an RFK Jr., who I view as being compromised by sexual blackmail in the Epstein network. I honestly think that his wife discovered his perverted sex diary and then allegedly hung herself.
It's time to win. Yamava Resort and Casino at San Manuel is giving away a Richard Mille watch plus $15,000 cash. Secure a finalist spot with 3 ways to play in March and April for your chance to win. It all builds up to the grand finale on April 9th when one lucky Club Serrano member takes home the coveted luxury Swiss timepiece. Join for free today for your chance to win at Yamava Resort and Casino, the only AAA 5-diamond rated casino hotel in the country. Details at yamava.com. Must be 21 to enter. Please gamble responsibly.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ace from Chegg. College got you feeling overwhelmed? I get it, but you don't need to lose your grip. We've got all the study tools you need and solutions you can count on. Study, practice, and learn your way with Chegg's all-in-one support. Instant step-by-step explanations, expert help from real humans, practice questions, and so much more than just AI. You're not alone in this. Let's get a grip on college together. Join me at Chegg.com today.
And so I'm very concerned about the reality behind, and I'm not saying that he's never offered anything of value. I bought his book on Fauci. I've said many times, and I enjoyed that very much. But to see, HHS shilling for the MMR vaccine when I know that he's aware that it's directly linked to potentially causing rises in autism in young boys, it's like man, I don't know. I'm very skeptical. But of course, at least today, there was an announcement claiming that HHS, I believe, or maybe it was just American CDC, I can't remember. There's allegedly going to be a government investigation into vaccines causing autism. I saw that just come out today, actually. So that's something positive, I guess. But at the same time, I'm very skeptical. I will say that, right? And so seeing like these individuals be mentioned on this Ian Carroll, episode with Rogan
in a positive light, non-critically, right?
Exactly.
So you've got these Teal and Prince are buddies. So why are they being mentioned? Who is paying
Weinstein
this guy Carroll? Right, and Weinstein. These are all people who are very suspect. So why is this happening? And where's Carroll getting paid? Is he like all these other influencers? Like Candace Owen was created. Like she didn't come from like an authentic research or journalistic background where she has books or writing or something like that. She's like a news celebrity, really.
Mm-hmm.
She's done some decent work, but like her of like Cernovich and all this, she has no clue what she's talking about. She's never done the reading herself, man.
And
no way.
Are you aware of the details behind all the weird claims of sexual abuse by minors tied to Andrew Tate? Are you aware of any of it? Because I haven't really gone down. Yeah, that's what I think.
You can prove that he had like his streaming business was like he had a young girl there who was 15, and there's like 6 claims of either sexual assault or rape in England before he went to Romania, right? Wow. And all these people are with him, like all these big names in the so-called alt media, Jones, Carlson, Candace Owens, all giving him a free ride. They're trying to raise money because like the legal system's different in the UK. It's still kind of run by the king, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. But you need to have money, and then you're liable for certain things. If your suit doesn't go through, you can pay the court fees. But they're trying to raise money so they can take Tate to court in civil court for for so-called sexual abuse claims. So there's a lot of trafficking issues, and this guy's not a pleasant guy. He has a huge following of like incel types, but he like admitted like the girls will latch on to these poor guys, and the poor guys think they're talking to the girl. And he's admitted to coming in behind and like getting him to pay tons of money. That's why he's rich. Wow. It's because he's admitted to being a stone cold hustling these guys, and the guys are thinking they're talking to this pretty girl. It's not
wow, that is so crazy.
He's admitted that, and like these are like admissions in court. Like you go, it's Exhibit A. Here he is. There's another thing where he's beating up some woman. Like that's the whole thing about the astonishment of this. something else is going on with all these guys,
Absolutely.
man. It's
That's
so
why I see
sketchy.
the Sean Ryan and Sarah Adams types, and right. And I mean, you can't, and then of course these Epstein influencers with Cernovich and the like. I mean, this is the oversaturation of the alternative media landscape in order to misdirect,
Mockingbird,
these
I think
desperate individuals.
I thought that Cernovich had a Teal connection too. I got to go back and look at that. A lot of these guys are financed by like Mercers and weird names, the people who are
Mhm.
super wealthy that they never disclose, and people find out about them later. Like it's really crazy.
Oh,
But
but don't worry, because Pam Bondi is launching an investigation surrounding anti-Semitism on the University of
like
California
that's the
campus. So
priority. That's the priority.
exactly.
It
Meanwhile,
is so crazy. This is not
mhm,
stopping. Like this is just
no.
off the charts. It's so disturbing. The whole like Ryan's another guy, just like Carol. You got to put him in the same box. Like,
Mhm.
how did these guys get on there? How do they getting? I mean, Ryan, he shot to the stratosphere like Carol,
Oh yeah.
and how much are they telling? That guy who he had on, Chris Bledsoe, is a stone cold Luciferian.
Oh
UFO
yeah.
of God is like one of the most sacrilegious, Gnostic, evil things I've ever seen in my life from a
Mhm.
theological perspective. It's like on par with Alice Bailey and Barbara Marx Hubbard type stuff. And he
Wow.
had him on, and that's what he's promoting. And you can watch these interplays. Like he just shuts up. He never says anything critical or like, well, you really think that? Or isn't this like burning tree a symbol of Lucifer's not gift of knowledge to
Yeah, no
humanity?
kidding.
Like, come on, man. Like he
My
doesn't say
God.
anything. That's what it is. That's the whole thing that goes over most, like probably 90% of
Oh
people's
yeah. I
minds.
forget what's the film production company that has the long winding road to the tree struck by lightning, the tree of knowledge or
Frankenheimer
something.
or
Yeah, I think it was.
it's
Yeah.
not Frankenheimer,
Which
it's
by the yeah,
Wurzheimer or whatever. Yeah, I
which by
had
the
that.
way, you mentioned Frankenheimer. That was Manchurian Candidate, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I pulled this long form article about Mama Cass Elliott's death and a potential alternative motive behind the Sharon Tate murders. And it is very interesting because there is a sort of this direct line drawn into even Operation Gladio being a part of it. Also, Alexander Butterfield being directly involved with Mama Cass at the time, which you consider his connections to Alexander Haig and the takedown of Nixon at that time as well, because Butterfield was the individual who was named by um, Bernstein to or Woodward to he was named to as far as like needing to be the primary individual that was brought in by the task force investigating the Watergate as far as the Watergate committee at that time, right? It was Woodward who told them multiple times that Alexander Butterfield should be their priority, and he was the only individual who could reveal the taping systems existed. And so that was the priority. I think that was a part of the plan as far as the deliberate deception there. I found it interesting that he's directly tied in with that story. But yeah, it gets very strange because it practically ties in, what's his name from the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, his death, and it explains how that was very suspect as well. And that, yeah, it seems as if
He
Mama
was just
Cass.
walking at the pier and
Oh yeah.
fell in the water. This
Oh my
young
God.
athletic guy fell in the
It's
water and
so
drowned.
crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, it really is. But yeah, that was oh yeah. I had a final point that I totally lost earlier about Wackenhut, and then we'll finally dive deeper into Mockingbird and get into what I'm supposed to be talking about. But so this I've found fascinating though, and I know you will as well, because again, Wackenhut tied to providing these paramilitary black sites to train up these neo-Nazi paramilitary organizations to destabilize the political environment domestically within Belgium and France and Italy and all these various areas. And so then it turns out that Wackenhut has a joint venture with the Cabazon Indian Reservation, which I was unaware of until I read about. I think it was called The Last Circle by Sherry Seymour. Wasn't that the name of it? Final Circle, something like that. But it was a very good book. And essentially, it was after around 10 years of the government exploiting the Cabazon Indian Reservation when a few honest sheriff's deputies and grand jurors came together to form this organization that was called Decency in Government. And it proceeded to file a lawsuit against the Attorney General of California, California Governor, and the Director of the FBI for dereliction of duty by knowingly allowing and facilitating drug trafficking and smuggling operations in the area, specifically Central California. So several Indians claimed that they had been forced to participate in some of these criminal actions by local sheriff's deputies, essentially exploiting them as slave labor to produce certain drugs. Operatives were flying small planes into the area using the reservation to smuggle in these drugs from Latin America. At the time, part of it was cocaine being grown in Peru, apparently, and then being processed in Colombia, which was subsequently distributed out of Costa Rica. And they were even flying in Mexican nationals to produce and cook meth on this reservation in California. That's what the CIA was doing. And Sherry Seymour traced this all the way back to an organization in Fresno called The Company, which was comprised of about 300 former military personnel and law enforcement officers. And they were importing billions of dollars of narcotics from Latin America. They owned ships, airplanes. They were performing mercenary operations and gun running. All of this was essentially published in San Francisco Chronicle in 82 and 83. Yeah, that's the long road. Yep. Jerry Bruckheimer. There you go. Bruckheimer. Yep.
Yeah, it's just exposed to hardcore Luciferianism every time you watch that, dude.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anyway. Yeah.
But there had also been this joint venture between the Cabazon Indian Reservation and Wackenhut Security Corporation to develop esoteric weapons like the railgun and even included biological warfare. And so the Wackenhut Corporation, originally founded in 1954 in Coral Gables, Florida, by George Wackenhut and three partners who all happened to be former FBI. And in 83, Wackenhut's 3-year, $81 million contract at the Savannah River Nuclear Weapons Facility in South Carolina happened to be the largest paramilitary security contract ever awarded by the U.S. government. Wackenhut outbid 18 other bidders to win the contract and brought in 460 uniformed security professionals and 50 administrative support personnel as part of just this single contract. And then by 2002, the company Wackenhut was then acquired for $570 million by this Danish corporation Group 4 Falk. Itself then merged to form the company G4S in 2004. In 2010, G4S Wackenhut changed its name to G4S Secure Solutions with its American region headquarters in Jupiter, Florida. Now, it just so happens that on June 12, 2016, Omar Mateen, who worked at G4S from 2007 until his death, committed one of the largest mass shootings in United States history. I found it so crazy that the original statement made that then James Comey, FBI director at the time, would go off and run with as far as his connections to Al-Qaeda. All of that stemmed from his colleagues at this G4S Secure Solutions Wackenhut Corporation, which has deep ties to Gladio. I mean, that's directly what it stems from, was being a corporate front for the CIA to facilitate the Gladio network. And so to me, that perfectly draws into place modern destabilization tactics and methods that are exactly that of, let's say what they were performing in Belgium at the time through their Gladio ops, which were just flat out mass shootings, or, they would just, in essence, they were targeted assassinations as well, because they were, layered operations. But it's very interesting to me that you would find this direct through line from Wackenhut, Dutroux, Cabazon to Omar Mateen, right?
It's unbelievable.
It's fascinating stuff, especially you look at the chronology of Gladio itself, and man, it starts to seem as if Paul Williams' book, right? The Operation Gladio, the Unholy Alliance.
Yeah, I've seen it. If there's a picture of it, like a kind of semi-famous picture of the sword on the cover, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And the way he lays it out, there's the chronological order that almost puts it in the terms of I heard someone actually put in these terms that the CIA was potentially originally founded with a priority to manage the Gladio network, because the timing of it is perfect as far as, and again, that kind of like implicates this clandestine international private intelligence network that really seems to have facilitated the, this modern system, the way it's currently structured, right? In many ways, with the economic hitmen and the various different techniques to infiltrate and embed themselves within each industry, and redirect it to their own benefit in every way as well. Like, it reminds me of the president of Belarus going public and claiming the IMF and the World Bank targeted him with bribes and were attempting to bribe him with like $900 million or something like that to implement dystopian COVID policies. And when he refused and went public and blew the whistle, it just so happened that an NGO, the NGO complex, the Western NGO complex, infiltrated his country domestically and attempted a coup d'etat, a violent overthrow. So, and again, that falls perfectly in line with the geopolitical framework of things, because Belarus is directly next to Ukraine. So what
So all kinds of strange stuff going there. Romania's in the news.
Fascinating.
The guy who actually won the election, they like flipped it. Like, it's really incredible. These kind of third-party NGO things are like exercising power beyond the power of the state. Yeah. They are really stand-ins for the state, but still.
Oh, yeah. I've never been so happy watching Samantha Power with her crocodile tears talking about losing her position.
Yeah, her husband is freaking Cass Sunstein. Man.
I know, man. And then you have Victoria Nuland and her
husband's Robert Kagan. Like, these are like the couples from hell. They filled so many cemeteries without, like, these are really war criminals. Like, they've caused war that have murdered millions of people. They're behind it all. And will there should be like a Nuremberg trial for them. And it's never going to even be brought up. Like, we're just going to move forward, just like we always do, move forward from these mass murders.
I know.
Crazy. Like, there's no justice.
Have you, by the way, I guess I should just briefly, I saw you had you were talking about Aldous Huxley recently.
Yeah, I had Klitschko. I did a show in 2022 with Klitschko about Brave New World. So.
I'm going to have to listen to that, because I just saw it recently, and it spurred my memory of when I covered the False Memory Syndrome Foundation and how they infiltrated, clearly they infiltrated all these very scandalous, some of the most, extraordinary cases in recent memory, like McMartin is one of them, and Patty Hearst is another, right? You have all, and the False Memory Syndrome executive board is entirely oversaturated with, MK Ultra operatives, right? Like Jolly West is on it. There's so many different individuals that are
Stinger, just like a rogues gallery of really sus people. Yeah.
But I began that episode with the Aldous Huxley statement of one believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. The nature of psychological compulsion is such that those who act under constraint remain under the impression that they are acting on their own initiative. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible, and he believes himself to be free. That he is not free is apparent only to other people. His servitude is strictly objective. And I always, that resonated with me for the longest time. And it was the way that I introduced sort of the concept of, kind of one nation under Stockholm syndrome, right? Taken hostage and entirely consumed with defending our captors. Like, that's basically what has taken place. And we're all Manchurian candidates now, like at this point, right?
I think so. I don't think there's any doubt. Watch this. You think that this false memory is something in the past? This was a presentation at the World Economic Forum this year, 2025.
Seeing that person commit the crime, even though that person's utterly innocent, that it becomes a planted memory. And so there's some really interesting research that we can plant false memories in the brain. And in a different context, one of the emerging areas that's really interesting in law neuroscience is pain detection. And once we understand the circuitries that cause pain, I guess the question is, could we then instill pain and use that in many coercive measures in the legal system as well?
Wow.
So.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you want to add anything?
That's
Brian?
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're like, these are like the sociopathic response. Instead of saying, that's terrifying, Jane, holy smokes, what if some evil person gets that in their mind to do this? Instead, it's like, wow, that's amazing. Take a note. Like, this is what we're dealing with, man.
Mm-hmm. No
Crazy.
doubt in my mind. And you consider these big tech oligarchs we're speaking of, right, with Thiel and the like, represented by his network or the PayPal mafia, which of course includes Elon and JD Vance, who these guys seemingly represent this new techno-fascist ideological framework of total information awareness, right, or the rise of the new right and the totalitarian technocratic state. That this is my ultimate fear, and that's why Operation Cyber Polygon. You combine that with Klaus Schwab's warning of an impending cyber pandemic, which will make COVID pale in comparison. He says it's at least worth being aware of, obviously, and especially when you consider the CrowdStrike outage that happened, and if you tie that with you combine that with the cyber attacks on online digital banking services, and even when the Internet Archive went down as well, right? Every time it goes down, it gets hacked or whatever they claim, goes offline for a period of time, it inevitably reemerges with the significant information missing. Memory hold, down the Orwellian memory hole once again, right? I mean, that's clearly what it seems like to me. And I remember I had brought up the Covert Action Information Bulletin before, because this was, I think, Ramparts magazine before Mockingbird operatives targeted the publication, and then essentially blackmailed the members of the publication until the publication was destroyed. And that was all because of their, as far as just what Ramparts was attempting to do was, of course, provide accountability to the intelligence apparatus, which was a huge problem for them at the time. I think it was specifically with Guatemala, or I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Chile. It was anyway. It was one of those. I'm trying to remember now which regime change operation it was, but they all start to blend together after a while. Right. You know what I mean?
Which wasn't a regime change operation.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all there.
Exactly. And that's why, it's interesting because this narrative, we're taking down the deep state, that seems to be surrounding a lot of more of the naive crowd who are, let's say, just blindly supporting the new administration, which that's always my, I think it's I understand, being optimistic and holding out hope, but there's a certain line that you have to draw when you're aware of the fact that as far as the deception at play here and the political theater that is inevitably always playing out in front of us, we have to always remain skeptical and only attempt to, provide accountability and hold power accountable, because otherwise, right, like, you're just, I think, being placated by various, what seems to be like limited hangouts, which is exactly what the Epstein, transparency was, right? It was false transparency. It was to kind of placate both sides of the political spectrum ideologically, got what they desired out of this. I would say that is actually, I would say on the right, you had a little bit more of a negative reaction for even supporters of Trump in regard to, but guess what? The narrative is so layered that, again, like you had mentioned, we were primed for this. what did Alex Jones and the like kind of run with as far as, oh, well, it's the big bad FBI and members within the FBI who hate Trump who are you know what I
There's
mean?
some excuse, like some murky deep state is
Yeah,
responsible. It couldn't be us bungling this.
exactly.
Like, well, they
And
didn't give us the secret files. Well, now we're going to go fire somebody. Like, where is it at? Why hasn't that happened? Like, just drive over there and get it. The FBI is literally down the street from the White House.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that is my, really like what drives me, I would say frustrates me the most, because again, like we mentioned this false transparency. Look at what just happened with the Seth Rich documents and files and records being withheld by the DOJ. They're supposed to come out in 3 days, and now we're already being told that this clearly those records will all be withheld from the public. And in my mind, instantly, this is the Pizzagate cover-up in play, in action, in real time. And no one's aware of that because they don't know of Seth Rich's connection to Pizzagate and the Podesta emails and the Podesta leaks. And at least most people should be aware of this, but it unfortunately doesn't seem to make it in the context as often as it should when in regard to
It's
Pizzagate.
been memory old. The
Yeah,
whole
absolutely.
statements, like you almost can't even find the statements where this guy from Europe asks Julian Assange, "Is Seth Rich your source?" And he kind of tacitly says yes without saying it. He's like, well,
Yeah,
I just can't
exactly.
respond to it.
Yep.
That's gone. Like they had to get rid of Julian Assange.
Oh,
And drive
definitely.
him crazy and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think
I think he was. I mean, in retrospect, it's easy to say this, but he was naive to think that they weren't going to pull out all the stops to get him after he did that. Yeah,
100%. And Seymour Hersh, I heard a leaked phone call of him. He didn't know he was being recorded, but it was kind of a hilarious conversation. I think I put it in my episode as a clip when I covered Pizzagate during the Seth Rich portion, because he implicates Seth Rich as having created these various safeguards and putting them in place, and he wasn't the dumbest guy when he used the thumb drive to grab as many basically grab as many files as he could. He just threw out a wide net and then hoped he got as much damning files as possible. At least that's what it seems. But as he went through them, yeah, it apparently he was shopping these files, and so Seymour Hersh was under the impression that other people were they had possession of these files at the time as well. Yeah, and that the service revolver that was used to kill Seth Rich, and they claimed it was a robbery gone wrong when nothing was actually stolen from his body. His wallet, his phone,
an expensive watch is my understanding.
Watch. Yeah, his dad's like, "What the hell? This isn't what happened," and apparently nearby where Seth Rich's body was found and he was killed had been an investigator's car from the local authorities had been broken into. The car had been stolen, and the service pistol had gone missing. And it just so happened to be the exact same issue that killed Seth Rich. So it's very interesting to kind of witness. That would be a plausible way to kind of cover your tracks if you did target and execute an individual for attempted transparency or something of that nature.
Somebody broke into one of our cars and stole it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
wow,
exactly. Yeah. So, oh my God, a thief must have.
I mean, the whole thing is just crazy.
Exactly, man.
It's such baloney. I mean, these are embarrassing type things, but those documents, a lot of people don't get. Pizzagate is the Podesta emails. That's what
God, yeah.
And people have to go back through it again because there's a lot of other very dark actors who were in those Pizzagate files that people didn't know at the time, like Maya Harris, who's the sister of Kamala Harris.
That is so crazy to me.
With Hunter Biden, who's
oh my God,
yeah, who's at pizza? He's at the Comet Pizza. And
wow,
so those documents are a lot like Hunter Biden's laptop being shopped, and there's a lot going on. Those lawsuits are still going on, by the way. I think that Hunter is trying to sue the guy who put out the book on the Hunter Biden, not the woman who published the book, the laptop from hell, but the guy who actually put it out and showed how many simple regulations that the guy's breaking of sex trafficking and theft, and they're not prosecuting. Like the system is so beyond corrupt
That is
that you
fascinating.
just cannot even comprehend it. Yeah. I actually talked to the guy who put it. I wanted to read it. I wanted to read the book that the guy who's Schmidt or something, had a German last name. I wanted to read it. He didn't give me permission, but that's the other thing is like the most potent thing you could do about this information is put it out there, much like Julian Assange did, because then people can just read it at their leisure and make connections that other people can. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
definitely. I know. What did you think about the Andrew Breitbart connection to Pizzagate? Because I always found it very interesting how
he said Podesta was running a sex op way before Pizzagate happened. Like, this is like he made some
100%.
tweet. Yeah.
Before his controversial death as well, which is very interesting. In 2012, right? He was and he was
44?
giving a speech in DC, and it was at CPAC, I believe, when he made that statement, claiming he had video evidence that would end President Obama's political career. And the coroner who conducted Breitbart's preliminary autopsy, he conveniently died within hours of the released report from what was declared arsenic poisoning.
Yeah, like, so here's a medical doctor. Oh, this is arsenic. I guess I'll take that for sport. Like, he's literally passed through medical school.
My God,
doesn't
man.
know what poisons are. Give me a break.
Exactly,
yeah, I mean, this, and in California of all places, like if you want to get a crime covered up in the California, it's a perfect place to do it. Like,
which,
what was
by
the guy
way,
whose bomb blew up here, Hastings? They conveniently blew up his car and took his body and just cremated it right away. Like, car crash.
It is the most ridiculous thing ever, especially, man, reading The Operators. I love that book so much, and it's a short book. It's so easy to read, the Michael Hastings book, where he outlines that's what was inevitably resulted from the Runaway General, that Rolling Stone piece that he wrote on McChrystal, right? Who ran JSOC when Pat Tillman was friendly fired executed, right? Yeah, I mean, and he ran that.
Well, that's what they said.
They
said, I mean,
friendly fire.
Yeah, he was frag.
We
more
know
like
he
a
was
frag. He was talking too much, and
that's
this
exactly.
war's bullshit. This thing is not. What the heck? This is what I was told.
Yeah, and he wasn't at all the impression he was under before he left, and he was hoorah convinced, that the freedom fries narrative sort of thing, right? And then he gets there and discovers that the reality is far worse and far more disturbing, and then begins to use his own personality and larger than life personality as far as just being an NFL player. That alone, he was a damn good NFL player too. So his name carried weight, and I think that draws you even as far as you become more of a target if you have some sort of namesake that can kind of carry weight with the allegations you're making. But it's interesting that we mentioned the that doctor's arsenic poisoning event, because I had brought up Mama Cass Elliott, right? And that strange connection to Watergate and potentially the Sharon Tate murders being a part of this mind control drug that was being facilitated and distributed through that area by Mama Cass's connects, who were apparently, she must have fallen in love with her handler, is what people are claiming was the potential case. And that this operative actually killed her because they claimed she choked on a sandwich while laying down on her back and with her feet in the air, and also claimed that she had no drugs in her system, which is completely ridiculous. And it was Dr. Keith Simpson, I believe was his name. Yeah. Dr. Keith Simpson. He had an explanation for the death of Mama Cass. And that wasn't the only disingenuous moment in his career as well, because this guy, his opinion concerning another mysterious high-profile death happens to be connected with heroin smuggling as well. And knowing the Jeffrey McDonald case, which I recently covered from the Fort Bragg murders from 1970, 6 months after the Manson murders took place, very eerily resembled the Manson murders as well, with the claims of the 4 different individuals there chanting with candles. Like Helena Stokely was one of the individuals allegedly, and she was chanting "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs," and it seemed to have been potentially a what do they call it? When it's the priority was the pregnant woman, right? So it was a
ritual sacrifice.
yeah, it was
So
exactly what
you
it
don't
was.
think that? Do you think that he wasn't involved? Huh? You think that story was
Man,
true?
I'll be honest, man. After going through, and I'm curious to know what you think of the credibility of Ted Gunderson, because talking with Tanya Yaki, she seems to really trust him after speaking with him personally many times. I know that he very much, you always should remain skeptical and never entirely trust someone like Ted Gunderson with his past, but every time he's come up throughout the course of my research, I haven't found reasons to call into question the legitimate credibility of what he has put forward as let's say with the finders. He claimed that the CIA, the finders were a CIA front established in the 1960s, and members were specially trained government kidnappers with top clearance and protection in their assigned task of stealing children, torturing and sexually abusing them, sometimes involving them in satanic orgies, bloody rituals, and murder of other children with the slaughter of animals. He kind of made his namesake as far as in the private sector when he created his private investigating firm after he retired from the bureau, which he apparently ran the LA field office for a time, I think is what he had done. But anyway, what I find very interesting is his whole claims with Prince Beasley, this investigator, local Fayetteville, North Carolina investigator, narcotics division at the time of the Fort Bragg case, who his informant, one of his criminal informants, was Helena Stokely, and I found it so incredibly convincing going through the documents and also watching Helena Stokely give her her statement to Ted Gunderson. I think she was a member of a chapter of the Process Church of the Final Judgment in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and that they were a part because there were named individuals who were knowingly a part of the Process Church who were actually involved in that local coven. And I think that this potentially was what turns out to have been Helena's initiation into the cult that night, potentially, because she had been this criminal informant, not only for, Fayetteville PD, but for the Army CID and the military police. And so she had been facilitating the local drug trafficking of the heroin coming through Fort Bragg at the time through the cadaver connection, which Prince Beasley also says was there were compromised individuals in the leadership positions of the local Fayetteville PD, as well as the CID at Fort Bragg. And they weren't only using Fort Bragg, they were using other military bases at the time, to traffic these and distribute these drugs. But they were compartmentalizing this. It's very interesting. It seems almost like Jeffrey McDonald was a thorn in the side because essentially they called him the golden boy at one point, I think, even and I think he potentially was going to blow the whistle on the drug trafficking that was happening there. But I'm not entirely, I will say when you read through, right, the potential occult black magic and malevolent satanic blood sacrificial ceremony that they were conducting that night, and how the CID refused to honestly investigate the murders due to this apparent large-scale drug trafficking, and that was being facilitated through Fort Bragg and domestically. And then you have essentially the Black Cult was and the Children of Light was named as well, but it gets far more interesting because there was one man, because three separate perpetrators who were present or participated in the murders ultimately confessed. And then you have a FOIA document which revealed that the FBI had obtained a confession from Kathy Perry, Greg Mitchell, and Helena Stokely, who were all allegedly in the McDonald home that night of the killings of Colette McDonald, who was a pregnant woman at the time, and then also who was allegedly the priority, and then his 5-year-old daughter, and I think the other one was 2.5, 2.5, and 5.5, and yeah, so it's very interesting because Helena Stokely, she absolutely refused to identify one man who was only referred to as Wizard, with 2 Z's, and she consistently claimed to not know his name. But Wizard's name was discovered to be Francis Winterbourne, a known member of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. And apparently she had just been initiated into the inner circle of the 13 members. And you look at the victim witness accounts of, or not victim witness account, but the witness accounts of seeing Helena Stokely. They call her the Stokely witnesses. All of this was withheld from the jury, withheld from, as far as there were threats made privately to Helena Stokely by the prosecution that if she went public or mentioned any of this, what she allegedly told, the prosecution behind closed doors, which she also told the defense, which is why the defense claimed during the court hearing, this isn't at all what you told us. They try and call her character into question because she essentially lied to them the day prior. But then she later on tells individuals that know her personally that she was threatened by the judge. And then years later, a memorandum comes out by one of the officials who were in the room with the prosecution with Helena Stokely, and claimed that he heard the prosecution, I forget his name now, but he heard him threaten Helena Stokely that if she actually talked and told the truth about what happened that night at the McDonald home, that they would send her to jail for life for murder. And so she just started lying. And it's very interesting because I looked even further than that, and I found out that there's one of the members of Jeffrey McDonald's defense. Man, he's actually a member of the Process Church as well, and another one of his attorneys. And not only that, but it turns out that he actually helped incorporate. First of all, he was a member. I think his name was John Markham. I think that was his name. But he was a member of the Process Church in Boston, and he helped incorporate the new chapter in San Francisco, which is where they directly crossed paths with Charles Manson and influenced him, which I found fascinating again because you have this direct resemblance of the Manson murders in regard to this, damn it, I'm trying to remember the specific term for fertility death ritual. Damn it, that's the term that I was looking for. That it was very much seemed to be a fertility death ritual taking place, and especially when you consider that members of the cult were responsible for distributing these drugs up and down the East Coast from New York to Miami through what became known as the Cadaver Connection, including heroin being smuggled through the dead bodies of GIs coming back from Vietnam. And I found that very interesting as well. And but anyway, I am under the impression that this very much seemed to have been targeting the firstborn child because Helena specifically claimed that the firstborn child is also considered to be top of the list in regard to the actual blood ritual in the context of the belief system of the group itself. But I really do think that there's much more to that story, and when you look at what Prince Beasley claimed, it starts to kind of like form one of the most extraordinary potential miscarriages of justice that ever that I've ever been exposed to, I would say. But anyway, so yeah, it was, what was his name? The other, John Markham, that was his name. All right, John Markham was the other attorney for Jeffrey McDonald, who happened to be a prominent member of the process, and he even acted as attorney for the church and drew up the incorporation papers for the San Francisco branch. So in 1977, he had served as the agent of the Process Church in San Francisco, where it was opening the branch, and then also he was running the the Magical Child thrift shop
Right,
in
yeah.
upstate. Yes, he was a part of that. And it honestly, man, knowing that as well
It
as
ties to Berkowitz, Lavenda, the whole squad. Yeah.
exactly. And
Guy's
you can
name was
trace
Herman Slater.
okay. You can trace that with Detective Jim Rothstein, who claims that he followed that through to the 9094 Interstate 9094 killings. And he tracked that through to Smiley Face Killers, the Jacob Wetterling case, which he claims was directly affiliated with the Johnny Gosch kidnappings and what was to be known as a paperboy fetish at the time, where this, elite, local, I forget which of the individuals was, I don't think he was ever named, but there was basically it was in April of 2005 where information was received from a source who stated he had been a field analyst for the CIA. And the source stated that as a result of the Johnny Gosch kidnapping on September 5th, 1982, he and 19 others were assigned to do an investigation to make sure that the CIA, or a rogue element of the CIA, was not involved in using children. The fear was that foreign intelligence operations would classify them as a bunch of pedophiles. The source stated that he was selected because of special qualifications he had, which would allow him to penetrate this sinister subculture. Now, Johnny Gosch, of course, was the first of 3 similar kidnappings. And this is all with like the Oakland County child killer case connects to North Fox Island and Francis Sheldon, and also the Spartacus Network, which tends to also overlap with the Odyssey Foundation, which is the Dean Coral murders,
Right.
which brings in John Wayne Gacy.
Right.
So I'm just like, man. So
Just a dark underground. Pasky, I think, is the name.
Yeah.
Name of the guy that ties them together is Pasky.
Yeah. Oh yes, John Paskey or something like that.
Yeah, pretty
And
sure.
all 3 victims were newspaper delivery boys. The second kidnapping was Eugene Martin. Gosch and Martin were from Des Moines, Iowa. The third intended victim was a local newspaper delivery boy from St. Joseph, Minnesota. And this is interesting because I think it was St. John's. That institution, Catholic institution, was directly connected to the paperboy fetish and the Johnny Gosch connection there, because apparently St. John's was being used as a sort of providing cover and as a front, a cutout for child trafficking, essentially. And the CIA was deliberately exploiting it. And apparently there was an individual within the CIA who approached Detective Jim Rothstein about this, who I believe was even more recently the mayor of a city in Minnesota. I can't remember where now, but anyway, he approached him, and once he became aware of the connection to St. John's, he went to confirm. And once he did, he basically realized that he had to either entirely let go of this thread for his own well-being, or his own career, right? Effectively, which is essentially what had happened. Is that so? He just stopped investigating altogether, and Rothstein never heard from him again. But it's very interesting because, again, it ties in the human trafficking and pedophilia in Minnesota and North Dakota. And apparently it was always the CIA, as far as Son of Sam, Smiley Face Killers, Jacob Wetterling, Johnny Gosch. That's what Jim Rothstein claims. And he was a part of the New York State Select Committee on Crime at the time, which that apparently was also covered up. And you had officials within that investigation itself who were, their entire careers were derailed. They were either, what's it called? They essentially were demoted, or just entirely moved into a separate. It was truly a great example of a cover-up taking place in regard to this 1982 investigation, the New York State Select Committee on Crime. But I think that strange connection, though, is very important because, how many people are unaware of Roy Cohn and his influence on sort of the
Trump?
way, on Trump, because where's my Roy Cohn, as Trump famously said. But what I found interesting is researching the Epstein network, tying that back to the Jewish mob and Meyer Lansky and the Brofmans and how the Brofmans effectively married into the Rothschild family. And you really come to find out that it seems as if it honestly seems as if Roy Cohn and his network of human compromise at the time, which he was 100%, he was using little boys for sexual blackmail, and that's been proven over time as well.
Wasn't it called like the UN boy scandal or something like that?
Oh,
they were trafficking them to UN
Yep,
diplomats
exactly.
or something like
And
that.
Tippy Richardson was a part of that one, I believe, as far as that being exposed. Tippy Richardson and Detective James Rothstein again, which he came in, he intervened when Frank Sturgis was attempting to execute Marita Lorenz. I always found that interesting because apparently James Rothstein has a background in military and intelligence, and he was on the intelligence vessel that was sent down to off the coast of Cuba during the Bay of Pigs. So he had a direct connection to Frank Sturgis, and Sturgis said, "You wouldn't have known the name of that intelligence vessel unless you were on it." And so he gained his trust, and then they had like a couple of hours of a conversation, and Rothstein's superiors gave him a beer, sat him down, and said, "You can't use any of it. Frank Sturgis is going to get out of this." That's legitimately what they told him, which is very strange. But Frank Sturgis had mentioned to him that apparently Watergate wasn't just about sexual blackmail either, with Heidi Reichen and the White House call girl, but it was also potentially about pedophilia and a compromised list of pedophiles from local DC officials as well, and then other diplomats and things of that nature. But anyway, so Rothstein, his attempts to arrest key perpetrators were thwarted by government officials every step of the way. He was entirely disenfranchised by the end of it all, and I find it very interesting hearing his personal account on what they do to journalists who won't back down when it comes to continuing to investigate and attempting to hold power accountable in regard to these networks of abuse. And so he says the choice example is when he served the head of the CIA's human compromise operation, Tippy Richardson. According to pedophile turned police informant Ben Rose in November 1971, Tippy Richardson, businessman Leonard Stewart from OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and a surgeon named Dr. Chesky, raped and murdered 3 boys aged 14 to 15 in Rose's apartment on East 64th Street in New York City. The New York State Select Committee on Crime subsequently served subpoenas on both Tippy Richardson and Leonard Stewart. When served, Richardson said that because he worked for the CIA, the subpoena would be withdrawn under the National Security Act by the time Rothstein and his colleague returned to their offices. And it was. Like, how fascinating is that? Yeah. And Ben Rhodes' cooperation with investigators because of that. Many of the rumors and information under investigation seem to have been verified, and he informed the New York City detectives that in November of 1971, 3 boys, ages 14 to 15 years old, had been sexually abused and then murdered in his apartment on East 64th Street by 3 men he identified as a surgeon named Dr. Chesky, the OPEC businessman Leonard Stewart, and CIA operative Tippy Richardson. The bodies were then transported to Connecticut by car and then buried on a farm. Under the GAFF investigation, these murders were to be assigned to other investigators in the New York City Police Department, but then disappeared in the hierarchy of the department. A second investigation conducted in the mid-1970s by the police department, during which 13 homicides, plus the murder of these 14, 15-year-old boys at Ben Rose's apartment, were investigated under the code name Operation Together. This investigation was under the command of Deputy Inspector John Collin. At a critical point in this investigation, it was stopped. Inspector Collin was demoted and forced into retirement. The third investigation was done by the New York State Select Committee on Crime. This committee served subpoenas on both Leonard Stewart and Tippy Richardson. When Tippy Richardson was served with the subpoena and questioned by the detectives, Again, he informed them that because he worked for the CIA, the subpoena would be quashed, invoking national security. And he was correct, because before the detectives returned to their offices, the subpoena was withdrawn. During that investigation, the New York State Select Committee on Crime, information was received that Roy Cohn, famed attorney who represented Senator Joe McCarthy at the notorious McCarthy hearings, which apparently he was involved in the takedown of McCarthy along with Roger Stone, which I found interesting, helped in covering up the murder and the disposal of the young boys' bodies. When Cohn was questioned about the murder of the 3, 14, 15-year-old boys at Ben Rose's apartment, he stated that he was aware of what had happened, but would comment no further. Information circulating at the time was that Cohn was often used to compromise people, and if situations such as those described by Rose occurred, Cohn would take care of them. Rose also supplied information as to the methamphetamine sales in juice bars owned by organized crime. These bars served as meeting places for child prostitutes, pedophiles, and various pedophile rings. The investigation into that activity was again buried in the hierarchy of the police department and not investigated. Former NYPD detective and ex-head of the department's Human Trafficking and Vice-Related Crimes Division, Jim Rothstein, tells John DeCamp, the former Nebraska state senator who investigated the Franklin cover-up, a government-connected child sex ring, of course, in Omaha, Nebraska, but he tells him that Cohn had admitted to being part of a sexual blackmail operation targeting politicians with child prostitutes during a sit-down interview with the former detective. Rothstein told DeCamp the following about Cohn. Cohn's job was to run the little boys. Say you had an admiral, a general, a congressman who did not want to go along with the program. Cohn's job was to set them up, and they would go along. Cohn told me that himself. Rothstein later said to Paul David Collins, a former journalist turned researcher, that Cohn had also identified this sexual blackmail operation as apparently being a part of the anti-communist crusade at the time. The fact that Cohn, per Rothstein's recollection, stated that the child sex blackmail ring was part of the government-sponsored anti-communist crusade suggests that elements of the government, including Hoover's FBI, may have obviously been connected at a much broader level than Hoover's own personal involvement. And to me, that fits perfectly with the fact that it seems as if, like with One Nation Under Blackmail and those connections back to the Meyer Lansky criminal syndicate and the Jewish mob with the Brofmans, like what it almost seems as if is that it was Roy Cohn was a part of this network with human compromise, sexually blackmailing politicians. It was then effectively passed off to potentially what seems to have been aspects within the Finders organization and the Franklin as well, which apparently overlap, because that comes up within Air America being involved with the Finders, right? Which is very strange how Air America is then passed off to Wexner and Epstein.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
They were moving stuff through Ohio, if I remember correctly.
Exactly.
I got to wrap it up. I got to run. Where can people find your stuff, Austin?
Sounds good, William. I'm sorry. We basically didn't even talk Mockingbird today. We pretty much just talked about everything.
Where can people find your research? I mean, you've done the stuff on the McDonald case.
Yep.
Some other stuff. Why don't you?
Yeah. So basically at the Underclass Podcast, pretty much anywhere you can find it as far as any platform for the most part. I would say the best places to support me are through Patreon. Definitely would be the best place to support me because as of now, I have my show, the Underclass Podcast, and I also have Already Dead every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern Time, and that's with Jose Galison from No Way Jose. And also, we both are doing a morning show together right now where I'm not always there, but I'll drop in when I can, and I'll run it whenever he can't. And then I have the reason Patreon I'm trying to plug that right now is because there's definitely an additional incentive right now. I have a show behind the paywall that's exclusive to paid members only, and it's called Whatever This Is. And I've been doing that with Brad Binkley from the Propaganda Report. and Sam Tripoli, actually. So
Cool.
that's been really a lot of fun. But man, I had so much ready to go for Mockingbird, William.
Well,
I am really sorry, man. I
next
just
to part
honestly,
5. Next to part 5.
we were gonna
All
have
right,
to.
man. I gotta run. Peace.
Okay, brother. Have
All
a
right,
great day, man.
You too. Take care.